Before we start the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I appreciate all the support I received from you. And as always, all the information in my videos is rumors taken from the internet or the street. I'm not saying the information is fact. The story of D.Rose /600, Part 3. This is the third part of the story of D.Rose and the story of 600. However, now we have left D.Rose behind as his story ended in the second part. This part will take place from the summer of 2014 to the tragic murder of Edai in August 2021. I will detail the murder of Lil Boo, go through both theories of the murder of Bebe from Mob, Bite Down's case, the murders during the Get Back Gang era where 600 were highly involved, Mikado's case, the murder of Edai and much more. We begin this story with a very disputable murder, namely the murder of Lil Scrapp from Mob. The reason why there is so much discussion about this case is because there are various theories circulating about who and which gang was actually behind the murder. As most of you by now already know, Lil Scrapp was one of Mob's absolute top young members at the time. He was allegedly involved in multiple murders, including the murder of Memo 600's brother, Lil Steve from 600, which we went through in part 1 of this story. Just as I have previously told, Lil Scrapp was even arrested and charged with that murder but was later acquitted due to lack of evidence. However, Lil Scrapp wasn't the only one arrested for the murder. Moochie from Mob was also charged but was also later released. It has also been rumored that Lil Scrapp was involved in the murder of Baldy from 600 as well as Fred from Dodge City. However, I believe both of these rumors are false. First of all, I think Baldy was killed by STL/EBT. Secondly, there is information that Scrapp was locked up when Fred was murdered. Nevertheless, Lil Scrapp was a known face, shooter, killer, and he was not shy with the mockery on Twitter. He was also known for having shot L.A. Capone in the leg in the year 2012. In 2014, however, it was Lil Scrappy's turn to fall victim to the savage gun violence in Chicago. On June 7th, Scrapp was standing in an alley on the 5600 block of South Wabash Avenue, which is considered mob territory. He wasn't alone. He was standing together with Moochie from Mob, whom he was allegedly accompanied with when he allegedly killed Lil Steve from 600 in 2011. While standing in the alley, a black car pulled up. Two men jumped out of the car and ran into the alley towards Lil Scrapp and Moochie with loaded guns, aiming towards the two. The offenders started letting a dozen of shots and both Lil Scrapp and Moochie ended up getting hit multiple times. Sadly, Lil Scrapp was pronounced dead at the scene when paramedics arrived. Moochie, however, was taken to the John H. Strother Jr. Hospital of Cook County in critical condition and miraculously survived and is still alive to this day. After the murder, the police interviewed witnesses who said to have seen a black vehicle speeding from the scene. Just like I mentioned earlier, there are several theories about who and what gang was actually behind the murder of Lil Scrapp and the attempted murder of Moochie. At first, everything pointed to 600 being behind the murder as part of the war between 600 and Mob and revenge for the murder of Lil Steve. This theory stemmed mostly from incriminating tweets from members of 600. Also, if I remember correctly, this theory first came out during the old Chicago Basement Wiki files. However, those documents are mostly filled with false and outdated information, which means that one cannot imply that that source is credible. However, there are still things that point to it being 600. We've all heard the line by Ruga from Mob in the song, Exposing Me, where he rapped, "Do it for Scrap, we made 600 change blocks," which has been reposted several times by Mob members. Lil Boo from 600, who for a long time was rumored to have been one of the killers, was also mocked by Ruga throughout the song. Then we've also heard King Von and Memo 600 mocking Lil Scrapp throughout their careers. Cap FCK12 has also mocked Lil Scrapp multiple times on social media, as have many other 600 members. The two members from 600 who for years have been rumored to have been involved in the murder are Lil Boo, who was later killed a year later, and Ju Blow 600, who is currently locked up for a murder which we will come to later in the story. However, I will now break down why this theory is most likely not true and why most of the evidence points towards Shields. First of all, the theory of 600 killing Lil Scrapp fails at the very beginning of the rumors, as the theory is based on tweets that Lil Boo was killed a year later and that Jublo 600 was admitted to OTF. Already 5 years ago, De Capone commented on an Instagram page that Jublo has never killed anyone from mob, and also stated that it is difficult to kill someone from the mob, a goofy can't do it. However, at this point, De Capone had an agenda towards Jublo since he did not like him, so it could be possible that he's lying. But on the other hand, he put it on L.A. Capone, which makes it more credible. Another thing, Scrappy's father has on multiple occasions hinted that it was Shields who killed his son. On his birthday in 2018, his father made a Facebook post where he wrote, "F Shields." Both his father and members of mob have also stated they are GDK for Scrapp, which indicates that it was Shields who was behind the murder. However, what perhaps most indicates that it was actually Shields who killed Scrapp is that Lonnie B from Shields made a song where he mocked Scrapp throughout the song. In the comments section below this video, a fan asks why Shields are claiming Scrapp when it was 600 who killed him. Lonnie B actually answered this comment by writing, "Stop it, we caught Scrapp in that alley," and, "F Scrapp, now you know the truth." What's strange is that no names have come out from Shields who might have been involved. It may be because their members are not as famous and therefore there are not as many who pin bodies on them like they do on 600's more famous members. However, I am not saying which of these theories is correct. Even if I personally believe it was Shields, there is still a possibility that it was 600. Lil D from 600 even claimed to be one of the killers of Scrapp in a tweet where he wrote, "F Lil Scrapp, Lil D Maker." There are several different examples of members from both sides claiming Lil Scrapp. That's why it's hard to know who it actually was. 600 have the most credit for the hit, but that is mostly because they are famous and make music. What is clear is that it is a side that lies, and you must also be clear that even Scrapp's family can lie, just like the family of FBG Duck did after his passing. There is family of Scrapp, his father for example, who say Shields did it. Then there is his brother, Lay, saying it was 600, and if I remember correctly, Lonnie B, who I talked about earlier, even withdrew his statement about them killing Scrapp, maybe because he was snitching too much with his statement, but it still confuses. My personal belief is that we will never find out who was actually behind the murder. The only thing we can do is speculate, which is not really of much use. Just a few weeks later, 600 was responsible for the murder of a member from 051 Young Money. Michael Potton, also known as Polo, and a 15-year-old friend were walking around in 051 territory when a van suddenly pulled up next to them. The people inside the van started talking to Polo. Suddenly someone inside the van started opening fire on Polo and his friend. Tragically, Polo, who was only 17 years old, was pronounced dead at the scene after getting struck with multiple bullets in his chest. The 15-year-old luckily managed to escape after being hit in the right arm. According to the rumors I've heard, there were 4 or 5 members from 600 on this hit. The names that have been mentioned to me are Lil Boo, Jublo, Face and Blast His Ass. Of these people, there is one that has basically been confirmed as the one who pulled the trigger, and that person is Lil Boo. This is confirmed by both friends and family of Polo who have released this information on various forums. As everyone knows, Lil Boo was one of 600's top members, so it can't really surprise anyone that he was the one behind the shooting. The crime scene was truly gruesome. There is a picture, which of course I won't show here, where Polo is lying on the ground in the dark with a blanket over him with one arm out and the rain pouring down on him. There is a very good text written about this very thing by the journalist Michael Lansu, who was the first on the scene after the murder when he lived on the street. I will therefore paste and read the text for you in this video. The text is quite long and will be 3 slides, but I think it is absolutely worth reading. You really get a completely different perspective and view of the horror that takes place every day in Chicago. At my son's 5th birthday party on Sunday, a friend asked me if my block was noisy. I replied as I always do, "No. It's a quiet, tree-lined, one-way street." But Monday night was different. I found myself barefoot, ankle-deep in water, holding the hand of a 17-year-old boy who had been shot during the downpour. I told him to hang in there and that the ambulance was on the way. I don't know the exact time, but the thunder and lightning were constant. The rain was coming down in buckets and the wind was blowing hard. I had been watching the storm through an open second-floor window that faces south onto 50th Place. Shortly after I went to the basement to check my 116-year-old house for flooding, I heard 3 loud cracks. When I looked out the window, I saw a teenage boy running through the yard across the street yelling for help. I couldn't see what happened from the window, but I assumed that a large tree branch had fallen on a car, possibly trapping someone inside. I ran downstairs, opened the front door and saw what I thought was a man laying face up in the gutter of the partially flooded street. I ran upstairs to tell my wife to call 911, which she was already doing. Then we both grabbed our raincoats and a flashlight. 2 other teenagers were near the man, who was lying motionless in the gutter when we went outside to help. One boy stood quiet and motionless, the other paced back and forth saying, "They shot my brother." Then he picked up some of his brother's belongings from the street, as if he didn't know what else to do. I leaned over the wounded teen and checked his left wrist for a pulse but felt nothing. Then I pressed my fingers against his neck, but before I could find a pulse, his entire body twitched and gasped for air. I now knew he was still alive, but I didn't know what to do to help. It was dark, there was water everywhere and a nearby street lamp and my flashlight were the only lights around. My wife came out with a towel to stop any bleeding, but the rain and the dark pool of water made it impossible to find the wound. I unzipped his fleece jacket, which revealed bare skin and a bullet wound in his right chest. There was no blood coming out, just white tissue that made the wound look like a belly button. A few neighbors came outside, and that's when I noticed a gun on the curb just feet from the boy. I told a neighbor to stand over the gun and make sure nobody picked it up. I wasn't sure who did the shooting, but I knew that emotions were high, and I didn't want to provide an opportunity for a second attack while I was around. I mostly stayed close to the wounded teen as he lay on his back, arms spread, knees bent like Jesus on an invisible cross. He wasn't gasping for air much anymore, and my wife, who has a medical background, went into the house to search for a respiratory mask. I waited outside holding his hand, occasionally looking up to check for an ambulance or the police. The crowd gathered around was starting to wonder aloud, where is the ambulance? Where are the police? A few cars drove past, and the occupants rolled down the windows and gasped. It felt like forever, but I knew it had probably been less than 5 minutes since we called 911. I looked back down at the teen and grabbed his hand again. I don't remember if I said anything else to him, but I know I patted him on the back of the hand as I looked toward his face. His big brown eyes remained wide open as if he was afraid to close them as he looked up into the tree branches. I stood up and looked down the block, hoping for an ambulance. When I saw a police SUV about a block away, I waved my flashlight up and down. The SUV spotlight shone down the block through a light rain as they approached. I looked back at the teen and hoped he'd pull through, although I knew just by looking at him that he was no longer alive. He was motionless with his big eyes staring up into the rain. As a professional photographer and photojournalist, I am used to being ready to document news at the drop of a hat. I've been to a few crime scenes over the years, and even put myself at risk to photograph a fire in the apartment next door. When I first walked out the door, a part of me thought about going back inside and getting my camera. But I remembered what a great teacher once told me, "You're a human first and a photojournalist second." I wrestled with the idea of taking photos right after police and paramedics arrived, but it didn't feel right. It wasn't until the police tape was set and a blanket placed over the teen that the scene began to look like the crime scenes I was used to. Except this time I had a vantage point from my front door. I could say I took a few photos because that is what I do, but really I took them because I needed to be able to put a lens between me and the reality at all of our front doors. Now we leave the year 2014 and move instead to the year 2015. a year when 600 lost two very important members, King Lil Boo and Stello. As most people know, King Lil Boo is one of the founders and original members of 600. He is also one of the members who put in most work on the street. The opposition was keen to get him out of the way. On April 3, 2015, they took the chance and succeeded. On this day, King Lil Boo was standing in the 5800 block of South King Drive when a gold-colored vehicle pulled up. One individual from the car started shooting at Lil Boo, who tried to hide behind another car. The shooter then got out of the car and walked up to Lil Boo, who was attempting to hide under the parked car. But it was too late. The shooter shot him multiple times at close range. Lil Boo was left laying on the ground with his head next to the tire, hence the opposition mocked him after the murder by calling him Tirehead. Lil Boo, whose real name was Jerome Anderson, was taken to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where he was pronounced dead 30 minutes after the shooting at only 22 years of age. A police source said the man killed, Jerome Anderson, was a documented gang member, and was on parole at the time of the shooting. It has long been speculated who exactly jumped out of the car and shot him at close range. According to the latest information that has come out through police reports, it was a lone shooter who got out of the car. However, it was not just one member on the hit. It has been speculated that there were multiple people on the hit and from different sets. The gangs that have been speculated to have been present are 051 Young Money, Mob and Jaro City. Before we get to the speculations about who actually shot, we seem to at least have a clear picture of who the driver was, namely Ario from 051 Young Money. Ario was actually charged with the murder of Lil Boo the same day it happened, after getting arrested in a parking lot in the same car that was used on the hit a few hours earlier, a white Hyundai Sonata. However, the charges were later dropped for lack of evidence. A month later, Ario would get arrested for another murder, the murder of Rahim from THF 46, the stepson of THF Bezu. Ario, who is still locked up, tried to blame the murder of Rahim on Sonny from 757, who was shot and killed 2 weeks after Rahim. Ario is a known snitch. He has also told police that Bezu from THF killed his sister Big Gay in 2013. It has long been speculated who was actually present on the hit. The names that have been mentioned are Bebe from Mob, Mota from Jaro City, and Melly, Ario and Uchi from 051 Young Money. However, many claim Bebe wasn't present at the murder due to him allegedly being locked up at the time. The member who has been singled out the most as the sole shooter is Uchi from 051. However, other claims it was not Uchi who did it. Some also believe Melly was the sole shooter due to a Facebook post Lil Boo's sister made after his death on the 1st of September 2019, where she wrote, "Tell Lil Boo what up," followed by smoke emojis. We have also seen several tweets from Melly where he mocked Lil Boo. For example, just 2 weeks after the murder, Melly posted a tweet where he wrote, "I'm in traffic smoking Lil Boo." Some people have even said Motor was the shooter. But if we are to sum up this chaos of different theories, my personal belief is that there were 4 people present on the hit. Ario was the driver and the 3 other people were Motor from Jaro City and Melly and Uchi from 051 Young Money. After that, the opinions diverge and there is really no point in trying to find the truth about who was the shooter, as it is really impossible to prove. What confuses this situation even more is that some members from 600 claim Lil Boo's killer is dead, while others, like Breezy, have stated it's one left. In the song, Let 'Em Know, by Buka 600 featuring Lil Zay Osama, which was released in 2019, Buka raps, "Caught Lil Boo killer out in traffic, let him have it." However, when this song was released, Tristo from 051 made a story, mocking the lyrics, and wrote, "He's good," followed by laughing emojis. In December last year, 600 Breezy posted a story on his Instagram which was a picture of himself and Lil Boo along with the text, "It's one dude left, we sent the rest to you, he ain't got long." 600 Breezy is known to have lied about a lot of things, but I don't see any reasons why he would lie about this. However, a huge part of his story does not make sense. He wrote, "We sent the rest to you." implying that 600 or their allies killed 3 of the 4 people on the hit. Ario from 051 is still alive and Melly was killed by Taekwon World. The only one they got of the 4 speculated names is Motor, who was allegedly killed by THF-46. However, it must be said that Breezy may be right in that it is us on the outside who have singled out the wrong members. As many of you already know, Lil Boo is an incredibly important and prominent figure within 600. He is considered to be the member who together with D-Thang formed 600 in 2009. The real reason it was created is because D-Thang's older brothers, Chief Domo and Trigger, would not let him claim Brick City due to his young age at the time. D-Thang and Lil Boo therefore decided to create their own thing, with them as captains of the Team 600. Other than being one of the creators of 600, Lil Boo was also widely known to be a killer and a shooter with bodies under his belt. However, it is highly debated which murders he was actually involved in. Many have speculated about Polo from 051 Young Money, as I have talked about earlier in this video. This rumor have been confirmed by members but also by Polo's own cousin. Other names that have been speculated about are Big V from Taekwon World, Lil Scrapp from Mob, as well as being present at the murders of Hottie from Jaro City, Javon the taxi driver, and Mojo from No Law, whom Young Famous from 600 allegedly killed. I'm not saying that these rumors are true, I'm just telling you which names have been speculated. I'm sure Lil Boo had old bodies we don't know about. However, one murder that we can debunk is the murder of Crystal from Mob. Lil Boo nor D-Thang killed her. According to the police report, it was a Black P Stone who killed her. What is very sad is that 6 years after Lil Boo was murdered, his father and brother were also murdered only 2 weeks apart. His father, also named Jerome Anderson, was shot and killed on February 20th, 2021. Jerome, also called Big Boo, was found lying face up next to his vehicle in the 2000 block of West 79th Street. He had been shot in the back of his neck and was taken to Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn, where he was pronounced dead. Why he was murdered is unknown. Just like I mentioned, just 2 weeks later, Lil Boo's brother, Ja, was murdered on March 5th, 2021. Ja, or Jaheim Anderson, was shot in the 1000 block of East 59th Place by an unknown gunman. Ja claimed both cut a gang in 600. Who killed him is currently unknown. What is certain, however, is that all 3 are reunited in a better place. After the murder of Lil Boo, 600 and O Block were out for revenge, and since there were 2 or 3 gangs present on the hit, members of Jaro City, Mob and 051 Young Money were all acceptable targets. It would take several months before 600 managed to get revenge, and that murder is not even certain that 600 was behind it. However, before the 600 retaliated, they lost another important member just 3 months after Lil Boo's murder. The murder I am referring to is of course the murder of Stella from 600. On July 21st, 2015, Stella from 600 was sitting in a silver Charger along with 2 other members. Stella and the others were driving southbound in the 5900 block of South State, which is considered as mob territory. While driving around in the area, mob members who were outside on the street recognized the car and Stella. Someone even shouted that Stella was inside the car. Members from mob then quickly entered a red vehicle and started following and catching up to Stella's car. Once the silver Charger stopped at a red light, the mob members in the red vehicle took their chance and pulled up next to the silver Charger. 3 individuals then got out of their vehicle and started shooting up the silver Charger. However, 2 individuals from the Charger instantly got out of the car and started shooting back at the mob members. However, it was too late. As you all know, events like these are over in seconds. Stella, who was sitting in the back seat, was already hit multiple times, including in the head. The mob members quickly retreated back into their vehicle and sped off, as did the 2 individuals in the Charger who had returned fire. Stella, whose real name was Cass Singleton, was pronounced dead on the scene. He was only 26 years old. According to Takapone, Stella was the link between the older and the younger members, that is members from Brick Squad and 600. What's crazy is that it wasn't just people from the red car who shot. According to the murder report, it was also people standing on the sidewalk who shot and people who emerged from an alley who let off shots. Their car was basically flipped from 3 different places at the same time. It was basically a miracle that not everyone in the car died. Stello has been mocked several times on social media and in music, not least by Ruga from Mob, who rapped the famous line, "Stello got hit from the back of the seat." Damn, the back of the seat? He tried to get up from the back of the seat. They left his head in the back of the seat. And Drilla from 051 Young Money is another member who has mocked Stello on multiple occasions. In his famous song 51 Dead OPPS, he rapped, "Stello tried to pull off, them bullets were faster." He also mocked him in the song They Lion, where he rapped, "Flame up Stello right now, the light was red," referring to the fact that Stello and the others stopped at a red light when he was killed. In the murder report, a name was pointed out as one of the shooters in the murder of Stello. That person was Edai from Mob, who was killed a year later, which we will come to later in the story. Edai was positively identified by witnesses, however there was not enough evidence to charge him with the murder. Instead, he was murdered a year later. However, when it comes to the other shooters, it is more unknown who exactly fired. What makes it extra difficult is that there were people who shot from 3 different places: the red car, the alley and sidewalk. However, there is one name that has been mentioned several times in connection with the murder that I have heard was involved, and that is Bebe from the Mob. What's crazy is that just like Edai, Bebe was also murdered a year later. A few days after the murder of Bebe, Breezy from 600 posted a tweet where he wrote, "Stello the Great, rest up. Bebe, Wookie and Scrapp by the zip," followed by a cigarette butt emoji. Stello was a very beloved member of 600, he was close with everyone. That's one of the reasons why he gets mocked. 600's enemies knew it hurt them. But that wasn't the only reason why he was hated. Stello was also a shooter. He was on plenty of hits and was active already in the early 2000s. For example, around the year 2010, Dome from Jaro City got shot by Stello while trying to slide on Brick City. One more small detail that is very interesting in the case of Stello happened in an interview with Edai, Young Famous and Jublo that Zach TV uploaded on May 8, 2015, just a few weeks before the murder. At the end of the interview, a car comes driving at high speed near where the interview took place. Jublo immediately runs up with his hand in his pocket. There was no time to fire any bullets because 600 immediately realized that it was not an enemy but Stello who was passing by. Zach TV actually managed to record the car as well, but stopped quite quickly when Edai told him not to record any cars. You also hear a voice in the background saying that it is Stello's car. What's interesting about this is that the car Stello was driving was the same car he was driving around the day he was murdered. This leads to the question if it was from this video that the mob got intel about which vehicle Stello was driving. Of course, it does not have to be the case that the mob found out through this video, but it is clearly an interesting detail. In a side note before we move on to 600, I want to tell you about the murder of Booby from Jaro City. Booby, whose real name was Shaquandra Ratliff, was shot in the head at an outdoor party in an alley in the 6100 block of South Cottage Grove. She was only 20 years old, but despite her young age, she was an infamous member of Jaro City, however not because of her street reputation, because she actually had one, but because she was the girlfriend of Lil Boo from 600 and was carrying his son when she died. Now you might be wondering how and why a girl from Jaro City was with a member from 600, well, Booby was just cool with people from both sides. For example, she was very close with D-Thang, Breezy and Trigger. However, despite this, there were even rumors that she let off shots towards 600 a couple of times. Booby was also known for her tweets. Her Twitter account was basically a diary of her life. She tweeted about everything happening in her life. For example, in one tweet, she wrote, "Let me sneak Lil Boo out of here because Duck, Dusky and Yarmal Fendo kill him." Previously, it was believed that 800 was behind the murder of Booby at the outside party. However, this is not true. In fact, Booby died in the crossfire in a shootout between Taekwon World and 051 Young Money. Whether it was intentional or by mistake is unknown, but Booby's little sister has stated it was Taekwon World and Jaro City who shot her, and that it was by accident. The person who has previously been suspected of the shooting is Lil Fats from 800. This information has been debunked and 800 themselves have denied being involved. Immediately after the shooting, 800 and TW Jaro City began to incite each other on Twitter. There were also internal conflicts in TW Jaro about the murder because Booby was very loved. Even many members from 600 and O Block were deprived because some of them were close. Booby also hung out with King Von's sister Kayla B at some point. Booby was basically in the mix in a lot of socializing. Many from O Block and 600 refrained from mocking her after her death, not only because many were friends with her, but also because she was carrying Lil Boo's son in her stomach when she died. We now leave the year 2015, a difficult year for 600, and instead enter the year 2016. 2016 turned it around. It would be a year where 600's enemies had a hard time, not necessarily because of 600, but because of other circumstances. We start with the murder of Bebe from Mob, one of the alleged killers of Stella, which we talked about earlier. There is a lot of controversy surrounding this murder because there is one side that says that 600 was behind the murder while the other side says that Bebe was backdoored by Wugga World, which he also claimed. I will break down both of these theories and the possibilities behind them. Before I get into the theories, I first want to tell you how it happened because even it is complicated. On June 14, 2016, Bebe was riding in a dark-colored 2009 Range Rover with other mob members, including Nut. While driving on the 6500 block of South Ross Avenue, which is considered Lamron territory, they spotted a white car parked on the side of the road. A man next to the white car was filling up his car with gas from a can since it had run out, according to a witness nearby. For some reason, Bebe and the other pulled up next to this car, and at some point, the man filling up his car and Bebe started arguing for unknown reasons. At this point, the witness nearby left the scene and went back to her house, and it was at that point she suddenly heard 5 to 7 shots fired. Once she dared to go out again, which was approximately 10 minutes later, the dark-colored Range Rover was still there, but the car that was earlier out of gas was gone. While she was away, the argument had heated up between Bebe and the man filling up his car. It all ended with Bebe getting shot in the hand and head with several shots by the man next to the white car. Bebe was still in his car when this happened, apparently in the driving seat since he was shot in the left side of the head, and he was found in the middle of the driving seat and front passenger seat, apparently in the midst of trying to escape the bullets by getting to the back seats of the car. Now I will explain the first theory, the one that hit the internet first. The first theory says that it was DSG and 600 who killed him, more specifically, Bite Down and Wu Tang. This theory came out before the police report came out and before the internet found Facebook posts from people who said he was backdoored. Much of this theory stems from tweets by Wu Tang from Duke Squad, who uploaded several self-incriminating posts after the murder. There was of course also the motive that supported this theory, that 600 got back for Stella, who allegedly got killed by Bebe a year earlier. An hour before the murder, Wu Tang posted a tweet saying, "Got my poker face on, I'm going all in." This was also his last post before the murder. After the murder, he tweeted a bunch of laughing emojis. Breezy from 600 also uploaded a post after the murder where he wrote, "Stella the Great, rest up. Bebe, Wookie, Scrap by the zip." 2 years later, in June 2018, Spot News made a post about a vehicle getting shot up near mob territory. Memo from 600 commented on this post saying, "Ain't hit shit for Bebe," followed by 2 laughing emojis and 2 skulls. My guess is that 600 slid on mob this day and got their car shot at. However, this is 2 years later, which doesn't have to mean anything. Memo may be just trolled, which he is mostly famous for. Bite Down is mostly suspected because he was very close with Wu Tang. There are videos of them sliding together that year, and a couple of weeks after the murder, He wrote a tweet about sliding keeping Bite Down with him. Bite Down also had dreads, which also the offender had, according to the witness. The second theory says that it was a member from Wagga World who shot Bebe, however, who specifically is unknown. This rumor stems from several people saying Bebe was backdoored and that Wagga World was behind it. Rico Reckless, who earlier claimed Wagga World, actually talked about this in an interview with Cam Capone News, where he mentioned that no one wants to say who killed Bebe because he was backdoored. Another event that possibly supports this theory is that Bebe was a suspect in a double homicide at a house party in Wagga World territory 2 months before he was murdered. According to the police, Bebe was not allowed in at the party. He then came back with a gun and opened fire, killing 2 people and injuring one 45-year-old. The 2 he killed were named Pierre Payne, 32, and Andrea Haynes, 34. The reason why I said that this event could possibly support the backdoor theory is because some people have claimed that at least one of the victims was affiliated with Wagga World. However, there are some who claim they weren't affiliated with them. What is true is hard to know, as it is hard to find information about them. It is also difficult to know if it was Bebe's intended targets, hit the wrong target, or if he just shot at people at the party randomly. In summary, there is a lot of evidence that supports both of the theories. Then of course there are other theories. To be snake does not have to mean that a member from Wagga World pulled the trigger. It could just as well mean that he was set up by one of his own, or that they gave away his location. This is a long stretch, but it might just as well have been that the man who filled up his gas acted as a distraction, knew Bebe and called him for help, but instead he set him up to be killed by 600. This is probably not true and is a far stretch, but I want you to understand that a lot may have happened during that time the witness wasn't present. One thing that stuck out to me as significant evidence was that Bebe and the suspected offender were arguing. There is no way on earth that 600 would have argued with him. It would have been on sight from both sides if Bite Down stood next to the white car. It's really hard what to make of these theories. I think I've laid them out well for you, and therefore let you viewers decide what you think sounds most likely. In the end, it's only tragic. Bebe, despite being a ruthless murderer, was only 18 years old when he was murdered. A month earlier, Pyro from 800 was killed by Bebe's brother, Doma from Mob, which he ended up getting arrested for and sentenced to life in prison. Before we move on to the murder of the second alleged killer of Stello, Edai, I just want to mention the murder of Twink from Jaro City. Twink, whose real name was Marshawn Jackson, was shot and killed on June 16, 2016, in the 6300 block of South Eberhart, which is considered Taekwon World/Jaro City territory. According to the newspaper, Twink was shot in the face and was taken to the Northwestern Memorial Hospital in serious condition, where he later passed away at the age of 27. The reason I mention this murder is because O Block was behind it. It was a lone gunman, around 5.7 with dreads, who shot Twink and then ran towards Parkway Apartments, which is O Block. The member who has been most singled out for this murder is Edai from O Block, a well-known member and shooter. This event is important since this murder allegedly broke the ongoing truce between Taekwon World/Jaro City and O Block in 2016. There is actually an article about this straight you can read if you want. This later led to the murder of D.Rose, which would be the beginning of Get Back Gang, which 600 also was a part of. It should also be said that Get Back Gang was already a thing after Bigga died in December of 2016. But the enemies did not kill him, hence the revenge came first after T-Roy died. Now we come to the murder of Edai from Mob. Just as I mentioned earlier, Edai was listed as a suspect in the murder of Stello. Edai, whose real name was Eric Banks, was walking together with Boosie from Mob on the 5700 block of South Wabash when man jumped out of a car and started shooting at the two. Boosie managed to react faster and sprint faster, but Edai, who first got shot and then stumbled, got stood over and finished with several rounds in the back. The shooter then ran back to the car and was seen speeding away. Boosie came out of the situation unscattered, but Edai was pronounced dead at the hospital at the age of 25. This murder is on film, but it is not something I will show. nor do I recommend any of you to watch it. Now many may believe that it was 600 who were behind this murder, but it was not. It was THF-46. The two specifically responsible were Westbrook, Tay and Gucci from THF-46, where the latter was the gunman and was sentenced to 55 years for the murder. This was a very sloppy hit by THF. Firstly, Gucci did not even wear a mask and Tay used his own car as the getaway vehicle. The license plate was read by one of those plate recognizers, so it was a fairly simple job for the police. The job didn't get any harder after both Boosie from Mob and Westbrook from THF pointed out both Gucci and Tay. It is even rumored that Westbrook took the stand at the trial and pointed out Gucci after receiving $10,000 from the feds. Gucci will be released in 2075. Now we have come to a horrific part of the story, and it is of course the massacre that Bite Down carried out on an innocent family. This situation is unimaginable to understand. How someone could do such a thing is just beyond me, under the influence of drugs or not. According to prosecutors, Bite Down, 19, began dating a girl named Amani House, 20, in the summer of 2015, which was a year before the massacre took place. Bite Down, whose real name is Daryl Benton Harris, became a fixture at House's South Chicago home until the month of May 2016, when Amani gave birth to the couple's first child. According to Assistant State's Attorney Becky Walters, Bite Down and Amani saw each other sporadically after the baby's birth, prosecutors said, and soon enough, Amani found herself pregnant with the couple's second child. On November 3, 2016, Amani was 4 months along with their child. Bite Down visited the House's family home in the 8000 block of South Shore Drive sometime after midnight. Amani lived with her 5-month-old daughter, her mother and her 4 younger siblings. A 29-year-old family friend was also visiting that evening, prosecutors said, and the entire family disliked Bite Down because of how he treated Amani. At some point during Bite Down's visit, he got into an argument with Amani's young brother, 16-year-old Elijah. The argument soon escalated to a physical fight which Bite Down apparently lost. According to prosecutors, Bite Down then left the home but returned a short while later with a gun. Once he got back, he instantly started shooting the younger brother, Elijah, in front of his 42-year-old mother. Bite Down then turned towards the mother, and as she was trying to run away, he fired multiple shots, striking her in the back which caused her to collapse. Seconds later, Bite Down turned to his girlfriend, Amani, and proceeded to kill her and their unborn baby. By that point, the 42-year-old mother had begun crawling away despite her injuries, and that's when Bite Down decided to shoot her once more. The mother then played dead for the remainder of the massacre. In total, the mother was shot 5 times in her back, buttocks, left thigh and right breast, and survived. Bite Down was not done here, because he then turned his attention towards the family's 29-year-old friend, who tried to hide in a bathroom. The woman was shot in her neck, back and leg, and survived. Bite Down left alone his 5-month-old daughter and the other children in the house and then fled the scene, according to prosecutors. The fact that more people didn't die during this massacre is nothing short of a miracle. A week after the massacre, Bite Down was arrested following a routine traffic stop. According to an arrest report, police pulled over a car in which Bite Down was the passenger because he and the driver were not wearing seatbelts. Bite Down gave officers a fake name and the men were soon allowed to leave. But as the driver pulled away near 63rd and California, he cut off traffic and began driving erratically. Officers followed the car until it stopped a few blocks away and the men stepped out of the car. Bite Down looked towards the police with his hands in his pockets. When they asked him to show his hands, Bite Down replied, "F no," and took off running. Since officers believed Bite Down was armed, they chased him and used a taser. He was carrying 6 bags of marijuana but no weapon. Police soon learned Bite Down's true identity. He was wanted on an arrest warrant for the murders of Amani and Elijah House. Amani House, who was 4 months pregnant, had been fatally shot in her right flank, right breast and mouth. Elijah, meanwhile, was fatally shot in his back. Bite Down, who was homeless at the time, was charged with first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, resisting police, obstructing identification, possession of marijuana, reckless conduct, aggravated battery by discharging a firearm, and intentional homicide of an unborn child. To this date, Bite Down is still waiting on getting sentenced. Now we enter the year 2017, a very hectic year. This was the year that Get Back Gang became a thing. In order not to sound too repetitive, I will not go into all the murders in detail as I have done so in several other videos. On Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2017, one of Roblox's most famous members and perhaps the member who put in the most work, together with King Von, was murdered. I am of course referring to the murder of D.Rose. D.Rose was walking in the 2000 block of East 71st Street in the South Shore area, allegedly looking for TB. TB had several pictures of him standing on the exact street and especially outside a sports shop on that street. That day, D.Rose was out by himself looking for TB and decided to go to the street where he had seen pictures of TB to see if he was there. It is then rumored to have been Brick from STL/EBT who spotted him and called TB to give him D.Rose's location. It was no wonder that it was Brick who spotted D.Rose because Brick, just like DB, lived in Paxtown around that time. When TB got the call, he picked up 2 times and can't get right and went to the location, but D.Rose, who was on full alert since he was lurking, spotted them and upped his gun on them and tried to chase them down. DB and the others ran and got away and went to their apartment, grabbed guns and dressed up completely black. They went back to the location and spotted D.Rose going into a grocery store on that street. DB along with Can't Get Right went inside the store. On the surveillance footage you can even see D.Rose standing next to Can't Get Right and TB. Second later, DB upped his gun and shot D.Rose once in the chest. Both DB and CGR rushed out of the store and fled the scene. The police knew exactly who it was who shot D.Rose due to surveillance footage and witnesses, but somehow, DB never managed to get charged with the murder despite all the evidence the police had. The whole hit went down like a cat and rat game. This was a huge loss for not only a block but also 600 since D.Rose was extremely close to them. After this murder, both O Block and 600 had one focus: getting disproportionate revenge. Their aim was to kill everyone involved in the murder and any member of Mob, Gyro City, Taekwon World and STL/EBT. It was after the murder of D.Rose that Buka from 600 posted the infamous tweet where he wrote, "Y'all don't know the half of what's finna transpire." With TB killing D.Rose, he pretty much signed his own death warrant. He was alive while his friends were murdered left and right, and he knew his time would come. It was only a matter of time. A month after the murder of D.Rose, OB600 would drop the first body in their act of revenge. Lil Ho, an older member of Gyro City, was found dead on a sidewalk in the 6100 block of South Eberhart. According to authorities, he had been shot multiple times in the head. The one responsible for this hit was allegedly OB600, and there have been several names surrounding this murder. The names who have been mentioned are Makato from 600 and E-Dog, Gleesh, Trey 5, Duke and HK, all from O Block. Now I don't think everyone was present at the hit, but it gives you an idea of who might have been involved. What is known is that the same gun that was used in the murder of Jamo from Mob, Makato was actually arrested with this gun, which could mean he was involved in the murder of Jamo as well, which occurred 8 days after the murder of Lil Ho. However, it is quite common that guns get passed around. I have heard both Makato and Duke names being involved in the murder of Jamo, who did what is probably hard to figure out since these weapons are getting passed around a lot, and Makato was of course not charged with either of the murders. My guess is that OB600 was sharing guns a lot during 2017 and the following year. As I previously mentioned, Lil Ho was an older member, 44 years of age, and was actually the father of Rary from Gyro City. Rary was locked up when his father was killed. As said, 8 days after the murder of Lil Ho, OB600 dropped the second body on their enemies, Jamo from Mob. Jamo, whose real name was Jamie Jones, was driving west in the 200 block of West 59th Street, which is close to mob territory. In the crossing, at the lights, another vehicle pulled up alongside Jamo's car and started shooting, striking him in the chest, back and arm. Jamo was taken to Strager Hospital, where he died about 4 hours later. Those rumored to be present on this hit are Macado, Face and Cap Fuck 12 from 600, and Duke from O-Block. A theory that has long been rumored is that they followed Jamo's car out of mob territory until they got the perfect chance to kill him. Jamo was the older brother of Lil Main from Front Street, who was shot in the face by TB from Taekwon World in 2016 and survived. He is also the older brother of Scooty, also from Front Street. Already in 2010, Jamo was close to losing his life after leaving a restaurant together with his girlfriend Crystal. A gunman, allegedly D.Thang from 600, started shooting, aiming at Jamo, but instead he hit Crystal and Jamo managed to escape. Crystal did unfortunately not survive. 2 other men were shot in the situation and luckily survived. After the murders, E-Dog posted a tweet that read, 2017 a lot of Get Back Gang. It's going to be a cold-ass summer. 3 weeks later it was time again. A third body would hit the ground. This time it was TB's best friend, Poppy from Taekwon World, who would lose his life. Despite Poppy being heavily involved in the gang life, he got a job at the L&P Wholesale Candy Company, which is located in the 7000 block of South State, which is considered DOD territory. DOD are BDs who are cool with Front Street. Why Poppy chose to work in a BD territory is hard to know, especially during this time when O-Block and 600 were constantly out for blood. Some people say Taekwon World underestimated O-Block's desire for revenge after the murder of T-Roy. Anyway, on June 16, 2017, Poppy was at work. A witness, an older lady, stated she had been shopping at the L&P and had asked the manager of the store if Poppy could help her load her groceries into her vehicle. The manager agreed and Poppy, along with an unknown male customer, escorted the lady to her car. The lady then related that the group exchanged small talk at the rear of her vehicle as she put her groceries in the trunk. She then recalled looking up and observing a male wearing a ski mask and pointing an AK in their direction. The masked man started shooting Poppy, striking him 5 times, including 3 times in the head. Keep in mind, the shooter was using an AK, so you could imagine what kind of damage it did. The gunman then ran back to his vehicle and it drove off. Poppy died 3 hours later at the Strager Hospital. The sole gunman on this hit was allegedly D.Rose's younger brother, HK, who would later be called the Headshot King, or Headshot Heck. Another man who allegedly was present on the hit was Munna Duke from O-Block. Many of you have probably seen the video after the murder where HK is smoking with a text on the screen saying, "Poppy would." Poppy was mocked a lot after the murder, not only because he was TB's best friend but also because of his alleged involvement in the murder of Cheno from O-Block, BJ's brother. The theory says that Cheno shot Poppy's cousin Young from STL/EBT, which made Poppy angry and therefore killed him. However, some people claim it was No Love City who killed him and not Taekwon World. Duke and HK put in the most work for Get Back Gang. Most of you have probably heard the song 12 AM by Duke where he raps, "Get Back Gang. That's me and Heck." What you need to keep in mind is that Taekwon World, Jaro, Mob and STL/EBT were not moving sloppily during this time, even though it may feel that way. O-Block were very good at gathering information and were well organized. Many other BD gangs helped them by giving out locations, whereabouts, vehicles and addresses of enemies they were looking for. This is the reason why they could be so successful. Bodies were dropping like flies and OB600 wasn't going to stop. DB was totally heartbroken after his day one friend Poppy was shot and killed. DB's former teacher attended Poppy's funeral together with DB, and that was the last day she saw him. She wrote in a blog that she was mad at him, and was almost shocked when she saw him walk in at Poppy's wake and made some rude noise and muttered some inappropriate words. Terry left quickly that night. As Poppy's funeral ended the next day, the teacher wrote that she knew she had to talk to Terry. As she looked at him deep into his eyes and told him she was mad at him, she loved him just the same. Jesus would forgive him, and that he could and should come to North Carolina with her and start his life all over again. He prayed with her. Derry never denied a prayer for him or with him. They hugged, but not for long enough. Both cried as they stood there, mostly for Poppy and for how hard life was, and how your choices don't always feel like an actual choice. She wrote that she knew that DB had lost hope, and so she did. I personally think DB knew what was coming. He saw his friend being dropped all around him, knowing that it was him they were mainly after. Poppy was only 18 years old when he was murdered. Exactly 1 month later it was time again. This time it was two bodies that dropped simultaneously in a joint hit signed by 600 and O Block. Of course, I'm referring to the double murder of Kobe from Taekwon World and FBG Duck's older brother Brick from STL/EBT, the one who allegedly gave away D.Rose's location to DB and Get Right. It was in broad daylight on July 17, 2017 when a FBG Brick and his cousin Kobe Mack were outside in the 6300 block of South St. Lawrence, which is a famous street in the territory of STL/EBT, and a popular hangout spot for their members. The most likely theory is that OB600 got information on Brick and Kobe's whereabouts, because you don't roll two cars into enemy territory without knowing someone is actually out. I'm convinced they were tipped off by someone that Brick and Kobe were outside. Even Brick's mom, Lashina, implied this. Just like I said, members of O Block and 600 got into two cars and drove towards 63rd. They circled the area and split up. One car drove in front of the house and one car parked on 6312 South Rhodes Avenue with members waiting in the back gangway in case one of them would try to escape, which one did. This is also a reason why Lashina said OB600 must have got inside information, because how would they know that one of them would run towards that exact gangway they were waiting in? Now it was time. One white SUV pulled up along the sidewalk in front of the houses. At least one shooter jumped out of the car and shot Kobe 9 times, with 4 of them striking him in the face. Brick instantly started running, but the shooter chased him into the gangway, where at least 2 shooters were waiting. Brick attempted to jump over a gate, but 2 shooters were waiting for him in the gangway. They shot him 6 times in total, with one striking him right under the right eye. Some say they shot him while he was attempting to jump the gate, and that the police found him still hanging over the gate. However, I don't know if that is true. The OB600 members then jumped back into their vehicles and managed a successful escape. Everything went according to plan for them. Both Kobe, 31, and Brick, 26, were pronounced dead at the scene. There is a tragic photo of FBG Duck comforting his mother Lashina on the scene after the murder. A mother who lost her eldest son, and a brother who lost his older brother. There are probably no words that can describe that sadness and pain. There are many names associated with this hit. There is also different information about how many shooters there were. Duck claimed it was 3 shooters, but I have also seen family and members claiming it was 5. Duck and Brick's mother, Lashina, have stated that C-Murda from O Block and Capfuck12 from 600 are 2 members the police have listed as suspects in the investigation. As you all know, C-Murda is also currently facing life in prison for the murder of the younger brother, FBG Duck. 2 other names that have also long been mentioned in connection with the double murder are HK and Trey 5 from O Block. Another name also mentioned that fits the description of Kobe's killer is Makoto from 600. There is a chance that Capfuck12 and Makoto killed Kobe and that HK, Trey 5 and C-Murda killed Brick. However, that is just a guess. Munaduke is another name mentioned in connection with the murders, mostly because of a picture that was uploaded with him and Capfuck12 later the same day at the balloon drop for Cheno. There is also a possibility that 1 or 2 mentioned were not actually present. It is difficult to dot all the names correctly on a hit, in principle almost impossible. Then there is always someone that no one thought of. The 4 names that I personally definitely think were there are Capfuck12, HK, C-Murda and Trey 5. This was a huge score for OB600, and just a few days after the murder, E-Dog tweeted, "It's going to be a cold-ass summer." 2 months later, RB600 would strike again. This time they would finally get the most wanted, D.Rose killer, DB from Taekwon World. On September 26, 2017, DB's time would sadly come. DB was out with side from Jaro City in the 7000 block of South Chapel Avenue, which is a 3-minute walk from where he dropped D-Roy. I think DB would have survived longer if he stopped hanging out in that area. It was not smart of him to be there. Our block knew where to look for him, just as D-Roy knew. Rumors say that HK had tirelessly scoured those very streets in pursuit of DB for weeks. September 26, 2017 was the date when the relentless hunt reached its grim conclusion. With intelligence from Paxtown, or Moose Block, RB600 got in traffic, relentlessly chasing TB's whereabouts. They drove to the given location and spotted TB inside, who were sitting on a porch along with 2 other unidentified individuals. It is then rumored that 2 of the alleged shooters on the hit, HK and Mikado, jumped out of their black 4-door vehicle, raised their guns and shot both TB inside multiple times, including the head. According to members, they did DB extra dirty, shooting him 17 times all over the body. To quote one of the officers on the scene who reported on TB's injuries, couple to the head, 1 to the neck and arm. Witnesses also stated that the shooters reloaded their guns and shot more times. Mikado and HK then jumped back into the car and sped away from the scene. DB, only 21 years old, of the 7000 block of South Paxton, was pronounced dead at the Northwestern Hospital. Side, however, luckily and miraculously survived the headshot but was sadly killed with mortar from Jaro City 2 years later, allegedly a hit allegedly carried out by Gino from THF 46. Police actually spotted the suspect car speeding away from the scene after the murder. The dispatch reported a 4-door black car going in the wrong direction on Chapel, 2 males, both with masks, and that one of them had a light complexion, which fits the theory of Mikado being one of the offenders. What is strange is that the dispatch also reported a second vehicle speeding away from the scene together with the black car, a white Dodge Charger. It is thus possible that OB600 came with 2 cars, both circulating the area to find DB and in case something would go wrong. Another one that I'm pretty sure was present at the murder but wasn't shooting is Muwap from O-Block. The day after TB's murder, Mikado uploaded a picture together with HK, both throwing up LA. Just like always when a high-profile member is killed, especially when the member that O-Block was really out looking for was killed, it pours in mockery and disrespectful comments towards the person who was killed, in this case, DB. When TB died, it was also fully confirmed that he was the one who allegedly killed T-Roy. Lil Gerald tweeted several tweets saying, "Long live D-Roy Slayer." LC from Taekwon World called him Mr. D-Roy Slayer, and that he became a legend after he did that hit, which says a lot about what a big heart and courage, both for good and evil, DB had in the streets to take out such a high-profile member as D-Roy. An interesting detail, the last Facebook post DB made, on the morning of September 26th, he wrote, "I'm feeling blessed today." 2 days later, Fredio from Jaro City was murdered. However, it wasn't O-Block who did it. According to the police report, it was someone who killed Fredio in self-defense. The name of the shooter wasn't disclosed, but the fact that it was done in self-defense says everything. 2 months later, HK from O-Block, the Heart of Get Back gang who had avenged his brother's death, was killed. Most of you, including myself, thought a few years ago that HK was killed by Wooski and Skinny from Jaro City. This is of course incorrect. What happened is that HK, Mikado and Lil D attempted to rob a 25-year-old man who was in the Parkway Gardens housing complex. However, the man, who was a legal gun owner with a FOID card, raised his gun and exchanged fire with HK and one of the other 2. HK got hit while Lil D and Mikado ran on him. The 25-year-old was not charged with murder since it was considered self-defense. This was a huge loss for O-Block, and the mockery of HK came quickly from the other side, just as suspected. Lil Bubba and Richie Jerk from Taekwon World also confirmed HK as the killer of both Poppy and DB by tweeting, FHK, long live Biko and Poppy. What's sad is that HK would not have ended up in this situation if it wasn't for his brother's death, and by that I don't mean that he tried to rob someone, but that he became the main killer during the Get Back Gang era. You see, when T-Roy was alive, he did not want that life for HK and forbade him from hanging outside on the block with members or using weapons. Now we enter the year 2018, another eventful year. Just 5 days into the year, 600 lost a member, Burger. Burger was not killed by any of the enemies 600 have in Chicago, he was killed in a botched robbery in Indiana. He was only 20 years old when he died. Burger was a lesser-known member of 600, he rarely gets any praise or mentions from them. Memo is maybe the only one who has mentioned his name in his songs and paid homage. 6 months later, 1 June 15, 2018, Get Back Gang would drop another body on STL/EBT, the one present at the murder of T-Roy. Of course, I'm referring to Monmon, or Get Right as he was also called. I understand that there is a lot of controversy surrounding this murder, however, I am sure of my case and won't even bother going into the other theory of Melly from 051 being one of the killers. To me, that theory is unlikely. However, what is likely is that O-Block got Get Right's whereabouts from someone on that side, just like they got Brick and Kobe's whereabouts. Maybe it was 051 Young Money who gave away the location, but the ones pulling the triggers was O-Block. I know many of you are referring to CGR's family saying 051 got him killed, but that doesn't necessarily mean they pulled the triggers. Someone who gives away someone's exact location in order to have that person murdered is just as guilty of the murder as the shooter, at least that's my opinion, and I think that may also be what CGR's family is referring to. Get Right was standing outside a retail business in the 400 block of East 63rd Street along with other STL members. A car pulled up in the parking lot next to the convenience store. Two shooters, Duke and Muwap, jumped out of the car and started shooting at the people outside the store with CGR as their main target. Duke made CGR stumble and fall to the ground by shooting him several times in the back. What is sad is that Muwap shot and killed a bystander named Troy who happened to be standing next to CGR. Troy was a janitor and was just doing his job when Muwap dropped him. After Muwap had shot the janitor multiple times, he then turned to CGR who Duke had already dropped, and shot him a couple of more times. Both then ran back to the vehicle and sped off from the scene. However, the offender on the left on the surveillance footage, who I believe is Duke, is very lucky to have come out of there unscattered because Rasta from EBT can be seen shooting back, and by the looks of it, bullets came flying next to Duke's shoulder and head. Just a few weeks after Duke and Muwap allegedly killed Get Right from STL/EBT, and the innocent bystander, King Von released his first music video and single, Problems. He started the song by giving a shout out to Get Back Gang. Then he subtly mocked Get Right who recently had been killed by rapping, "Headshots if you ducking down, then we shoot at the ground, see folks gon' be killing shit, wipe the target and the witnesses." In the song Down Me by King Von, he rapped, "Duke and Muwap shoot some, got 250s, they 100. In another song by King Von, 2 AM, he raps, "Muwap did em dirty, now it's hot outside." In an unreleased song by Muwap, he raps, "Duke like King Kong, standing over people in their hood." As if this was not enough evidence, Muwap uploaded a story with a picture of him and Duke, with lyrics from 2 AM and a text saying, "You get the right, I got the left, we gon' meet back up." He also posted a picture of him and Duke on Instagram with the caption, "You wouldn't even know what type of bond me and this dude got." Picture speaks for itself. In the picture, Duke was posing with his hand as a gun, aiming at the ground. Muwap posed the same but aimed his hand forward. A week after the murder, Edai uploaded a picture on Twitter of him, Muwap, Duke, DQ, Kalish and Youngin with the text, "You better get right. Or get left." Another interesting thing is that Duke actually got shot in the leg not too long after CGR was murdered. A few months later after the murder of CGR, Get Back gang dropped another body, this time on Mob. The murder I'm referring to is Dusky, who was killed on October 9, 2018. This was a hit carried out by 600. Dusky was outside in the 5900 block of South Michigan, which is considered mob territory. A car. At least one of the people inside the car started letting shots. Dusky was shot in the head and a 20-year-old woman was struck in the foot. Both were taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center. The woman survived, but Dusky, who had been hit in the head, was tragically pronounced dead. Two names have frequently been mentioned in connection with this murder, and they are Ju Blow and Capfuck12 from 600. A year after the murder, Capfuck12 posted a tweet where he wrote, "Smoking Dusky cause I know him." Dusky was a known shooter and killer. He had been in several shootouts with enemies of Mob, and I'm quite sure he was involved in 1 or 2 homicides. Just a few months before his death, he was listed as the main suspect in the murder of Lucy from Lakeside. Lucy was a 14-year-old boy who was dating Dusky's little sister, and had allegedly punched her. Dusky found out about this, and happened to run into Lucy the same day at a gas station. Apparently a fight broke out where Lucy pulled his sister to the ground. They then left the gas station, but 5 minutes later, while driving through Mob territory in his Camaro, Dusky spots Lucy and decides to hop out of the car and kill him. Dusky was identified as the shooter by a girl at the scene, but was never charged with the murder. If he was, he would probably have been alive today. The detectives also talked to a person who said that Dusky told him he felt bad about killing the kid, because he didn't know how young he was. The murder of Dusky was followed by a lot of mockery from both 600 and O Block. However, they didn't have time to laugh for long before it slammed in the other direction. Less than 24 hours after Dusky's murder, Mob retaliated on 600 by killing Waldo. On this day, Waldo was out walking on a sidewalk in the 300 block of East 63rd Street, an open field, with nowhere to run or hide and allegedly high as a kite. Suddenly, a blue 2018 Impala pulled up next to him. 4 people jumped out and fired approximately 22 rounds, which hit Waldo all over the body including the head. The shooters then got back into the car and fled westbound, according to authorities. Waldo, who was only 22 years old, was pronounced dead less than 10 minutes after he was shot, according to paramedics. The most famous theory says that this was a joint hit carried out by Mob and Geo Drive. 3 names that have been constantly mentioned in connection with this murder are Lil Sean and Lil Boba from Mob, and Graysky from Geo Drive. The 3 went on and live streamed on Instagram after the murder, still with hoodies tied up. Lil Sean from Mob was really hurt after the murder of his friend Dusky. He posted several self-incriminating stories on Instagram before and after the murder of Waldo. Among other things, he wrote, "Dusky, the sun will shine on us today. Olna Drive, I take your life. Straight homicide, I did enough crying. You know what time it is. And, get his lacking ass, go," followed by a smoke emoji and also tagging Waldo's Instagram page. Waldo was a beloved member of 600. He was also an alleged shooter and killer. His nickname was 4.0. He was also a very disrespectful member. He posted several posts which mocked deceased members such as Lil Jojo and Lil Mark. This mockery was answered after his death, not least by FBG Duck, who rapped, "He got caught in traffic, Waldo ain't got to finish his status, he on the internet laughin', cappin', then got caught without it." What is most incomprehensible to me is that Waldo was out walking the way he did the day after Dusky's murder. That's like asking to be killed. I mean, he must have understood how dangerous it was. Even his friend made a Facebook post after his death, saying that he warned Waldo about walking outside like that. 2 weeks after the murder of Waldo, Dusky's funeral was shot up. Everybody knows by now that the ricochet that hit Dusky in the head was fired by one of the guests at the funeral who tried to shoot back at the offenders. Possibly 10 milli from Mob. There is also some controversy about who the offenders actually were and which gang they came from. Both 800 and O Block have claimed the shooting heavily on the internet and in songs, not least King Von. The only evidence that actually exists regarding this shooting is that King Von was asked about the shooting during an arrest and that the police also believed that the shooter came from O Block. My personal belief is that it was members of O Block who were behind it. Now we enter the years 2019, 2020 and 2021, and there are 3 murders that I want to go over a little quickly. The first is Killa Ki, who was killed on September 13, 2019. There is a lot of controversy surrounding this murder. Some believe that the mob backdoored him, while others believe that it was either 600 or Front Street that was behind it. It is very difficult to know what is true. However, he was killed on Lil Steve's birthday, which could perhaps mean something. There is also the possibility that someone from his own gang dropped the location to the enemies. The second murder I want to mention is the murder of Dex from Mob, who was killed on May 6, 2020. Mally from DSG Nico Gang ended up getting arrested for this murder. For those of you who don't know, Nico Gang and 600 are very tight, almost the same thing. Many also believe that 600 were present at this hit, and that it was an act of revenge for the murder of Waldo. The third murder I want to mention is the killing of Senyo from Von World. Senyo was an older member of Von World, who is very tight with Mob. If I remember correctly, Mob was even created by members of Von World. Senyo was killed on March 8, 2021, allegedly by Man from Front Street. Here, too, many believe that it was an act of revenge for the murder of Waldo. For those of you who don't know, Waldo had a lot of family in Front Street. It was also there he was killed. Senyo was the person who live-streamed on Instagram the day Dusky died. They were on the block together with several other Mob members. You could also see CapFuck12 joining the live stream at the end. Some say that's how he found out their whereabouts. Now we have arrived at the event that everyone has been waiting for. A murder that really shook the whole drill culture. A murder of a rapper who helped put 600 and drill music on the map since the early years. Of course, I'm referring to the murder of the rapper Edai from 600, the older brother of Edai. Edai, whose real name was Cordy Ely, was fatally shot and killed on August 1, 2021, in the 7200 block of South Bennett Avenue. The neighborhood Edai was killed and is considered to be territory of Ghetto World, who were part of the East End Alliance together with Moose Block and Malltown. The reason why I mention this alliance is because Malltown, which I just mentioned as one of the members, is rumored to be behind the murder of Edai. In order to understand this reputation, you also need to understand the relationships and the politics behind it. The fact is that there are several members from East End, mainly from Malltown and Moose Block, who were, and are, cool with members of 051 Young Money and Melly Way, which includes gangs such as 757, Geo Drive and Mob. Melly was actually at some point living in Malltown territory, and was cool with several of the members. Nooch, who was killed in July 2022, was one of the members who were cool with both Melly and Drilla from 051YM. Nooch was also part of the Melly Way movement, who is at war with Taekwon World for killing Melly in September 2019. Nooch's relationship with 757 also stems from the fact that he originated from 035, before the 757 Alliance, then called Jamar World, which was created after Jamar from Lawless was killed in 2010 by Outlaw City and South Sea. Another individual who was very close with Melly was Ducky, also known as Lil D, from Malltown, who was killed by Paxtown in 2020 while live streaming on Facebook. Ducky Way was created in his honor. The theory that Malltown killed Edai stems from these relationships, since their allies are bitter enemies of 600. However, Edai was not killed in Malltown, he was killed in Ghetto World, who are not part of the Melly Way movement. According to Breezy from 600, Edai visited a woman in what he thought was non-op territory that day in August. The theory that Edai visited a woman seems to be correct, because according to the incident report, Edai pushed the woman away as soon as the shots started flying in the air. According to the report, there were 2 offenders that jumped out of a gold Buick SUV and started shooting at Edai. As I said, the woman got shoved away from danger by Edai. He then tried to crawl under a car for cover. But once the shooters had ran back to their car and sped away from the scene, Edai had been shot 22 times all over his body. Edai sustained 9 shots to the right flank, 1 to the butt cheek, 2 to the right mid-back, 2 to the right thigh, 1 to the right shoulder, 2 to the right upper abdomen, 2 to the inner right thigh, 2 to the right forearm, and 1 to the right upper arm. It was a dirty kill. It was also clear that it was Edai who was the target of the shooting, nobody else. Who actually pulled the trigger is unknown, but the theory is that they were from Maltown. However, this is not the only theory that exists. A few years ago I received information that it was Paxtown that killed Edai while sliding on East End, and that they targeted him because of their good relationship with Jaro City and Taekwon World. However, I'm not sure if I believe that theory. It seems a little bit stretched. There are also those who believe that Edai was set up by somebody, possibly the woman he was accompanied with. There is of course also a probability that somebody from East End, with loyalty to Maliway, gave away Edai's location to Mob, or any other gang a part of the Maliway movement. What is difficult in connection with big profiles like Edai being murdered, is that there are very many gangs who want to claim it, even if they were not involved. There is also a lot of information coming out, and sometimes it can be difficult to distinguish what is false or true. At the end of the day, it's incredibly sad that Chicago lost such a big profile as Edai. He was one of my favorite rappers from the old drill era. He had classics such as War and 600. Rest in peace, Edai. Now this story is coming to an end, but before I finish I want to tell you about 2 more things. The death of Boss Moo and Makoto, both high-profile members of 600. Boss Moo passed away on September 10, 2021. On this day, Boss Moo first killed his girlfriend and then killed himself. According to information, he did this due to mental health issues. The girl was found with multiple gunshot wounds to her body and Boss Moo had shot himself in the head. This did not occur in Chicago, it happened in Los Angeles. Makoto, on the other hand, was found dead in his cell in the county. According to sources, there is a type of drug in the county that has gotten people hooked recently. Apparently it is called K2 and you smoked it off paper. According to sources, Makoto died of an overdose. As many of you already know, Makoto was fighting a double homicide together with Lil Scud from O Block, who had already been sent to 26 years in prison for the 2 murders. The double homicide occurred in June 2017. The 2 victims were 2 women, both mothers. Their names were Juliet, 42, and Janine, 32. This was the last part of the story of D.Rose and 600. I apologize that it took time to get it out, but the reason is the fake copyright issues the channel has been subjected to. I appreciate your support.